The Matilda II tank was ready just in time to join the fight when World War II broke out, and became the only British tank to serve throughout the entire conflict. The imposing model was conceptualized in the mid-1930s as the Nazi threat became more prevalent. And even though it was somewhat limited in armament and speed, the Matildas soon gained legendary status because of their heavy and impenetrable armor. They especially made a mark in the North African theater, where they wreaked implacable havoc on the enemy and became known as the Queen of the Desert. The Italian and German forces didn't know what to do about it, and as Tank Museum curator David Willey put it, quote, "This is the tank that caused Hitler to worry when he read reports of their 37mm anti-tank guns bouncing off this thick armor." War preparations. The Matilda II, sometimes called Matilda Senior, was born under the A-12 specification for an infantry tank in 1936. It was the second infantry tank in British inventory, after its predecessor, the A-11 Matilda I. According to the Tank Museum, the British forces realized they needed 3 different types of tanks. Lighter tanks with higher speeds would assume reconnaissance roles. Heavier tanks, also known as infantry tanks, would aid the infantry in advancing towards enemy positions, but were rather slow. And finally, medium-weight tanks, also called cruisers, would penetrate deeper into the enemy's defenses. In the mid-1930s, commander of the Tank Corps, Hugh Ells, became Master General of the Ordnance. Ells supported the initiative to create an infantry tank, but budget shortages in the interwar period severely hampered the task. When the Matilda I was launched under a reduced budget, it was evident that they needed a better vehicle, especially as the Nazi threat became more dangerous every passing year. Hence, the A-12 was conceptualized. The new tank was produced by the Royal Arsenal and manufactured by Vulcan Foundry. However, several problems soon plagued its development. The vehicle was fitted with an increased armor, but rendered underpowered. A clever solution was then devised, using 2 AEC straight-6 water-cooled diesel engines, the same type London buses used. Each engine provided 87 horsepower, and both were linked using a common shaft. A contract for 2 wooden mock-ups and 2 mild steel prototypes was issued to Vulcan in November of 1936. The first mock-up was delivered in April of 1937, and the A-12E1 prototype a year later. The tank proved to have an excellent performance during a 1,000-mile test. Therefore, only minor changes were made before the production started, including an improved gearbox, suspension, and cooling. The war in Europe became inevitable not long after, and the production of the Matilda II was fast-tracked, curtailing its predecessor. Still, by September of 1939, only 2 models were ready to join the British Army in the front lines. Queen of the Desert. The Matilda was equipped with a relatively small 40mm main gun to serve its main purpose of trouncing enemy positions. It had limited penetration capacity against armored targets, but it undeniably suited its role as infantry support. Matilda's 7.92mm machine gun shared the same ammunition as the German weapons, so any recovered supplies from the enemy could supplement the British. Furthermore, not unlike other British infantry tanks, Matilda was designed to resist powerful artillery shelling. Its thick protection came to 3.1 inches at the nose, with side armors of 2.5 inches or more in some places, and a 2.2-inch protective hull in the rear. During the North African theater, the Matildas had the heaviest armor, making them invulnerable to early Axis anti-tank rifles and other tanks. Plus, their nose was strategically angled and manufactured in one piece, as opposed to riveted parts, creating a highly resistant shield. In terms of design, the hull was painted with a camouflage pattern incorporating block colors that broke the tank in half and were based on the dazzle patterns of World War I ships. The tank weighed about 27 long tons, over 2 times the weight of the first Matilda. In addition, its gun was fitted in a 3-man turret traversed by hydraulic motor or by hand through 360 degrees, and the 2-pounder gun could be angled from -15 to 20 degrees. Still, one of its most notorious weaknesses was the lack of a high explosive round. Such a shell was indeed designed for the main gun, but was seldom used, as the burst was too small. In turn, unarmored targets would be met with the machine gun or 2 smoke grenade launchers on its right side. The Matildas featured a conventional layout, with the driver at the front, the turret at the center, and the engines at the rear. The driver's compartment could be accessed via a hatch on the roof, which was protected by a rotating armored cover, while the crew could exit through an escape hatch under the driver's seat in case of emergency. Moreover, vision from the driver's position was accomplished through a viewing port with an armored shield and a single periscope. As for the gunner and commander, they were seated in a laddered arrangement on the left side of the turret, with the loader to the right, and the cylindrical room was mounted on a ball-bearing ring. Under normal circumstances, the turret used a power traverse system, but could be operated manually, with mechanical emergency assistance. Nevertheless, Matilda's unmatched protection came at a cost. Its heavy armor constrained the tank to a mere 6 miles per hour on desert terrain, whereas the speed on roads could not be higher than 16 miles per hour. However, these problems were considered virtues when considering that it was an infantry tank rather than a cruiser one. Its particularly heavy cast turret armor became legendary, earning the model the nickname Queen of the Desert. Operation. The Matildas were first deployed in France in 1940 with the 7th Royal Tank Regiment against the German invaders. For a brief period, the mighty tanks were able to hold the advance of the enemy, but after breaking through to the rear of the 7th Panzer Division, 30 tanks were lost, and the surviving vehicles around Dunkirk had to be abandoned when the British forces were forced to evacuate the area. From 1940 to 1942, the Matildas ran the show in North Africa, particularly against lightly armored Italian tankettes and other light and medium tanks. As the British managed to push the Italians out of Egypt and then broke into neighboring Libya to take Bardia and Tobruk, the Africa Corps brought 88mm anti-aircraft guns to stop the Queen of the Desert's advance. Still, the Matilda tanks were eventually replaced by other models. The powerful tank would also serve in other countries, notably in Australia, where it was highly valued and deployed in the Pacific against the Japanese. The Germans also admired the tank and put captured examples into service in the Africa Corps, creating plenty of confusion on both sides of the war. The Matildas even served with the Red Army, but the tank became even slower in the snow. Both the Australian and Soviet armies modified the tank, creating several variants adapted to different terrains and needs. There was even a flamethrower version, known as the Frog, that served in Borneo. Of the roughly 3,000 Matildas built throughout the war, only 70 remain. Several of them can be found in museums, public monuments, or private collections in different degrees of preservation. The Royal Australian Armoured Corps Memorial and Army Tank Museum owns a notable assortment of 5 Matildas, while the Bovington Tank Museum in the UK and the American Heritage Museum in the US both own tanks in running condition. Other examples can be found around the world in Russia, Belgium, and India. Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and leave a comment in the section below. And don't forget to subscribe to all our Dark Documentaries channels for more exciting stories about the World Wars. Stay tuned.